Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin today with a simple question, one that changed the entire course of my life. Why is it that some people work hard all their lives and still struggle, while others, seemingly with the same 24 hours, manage to build freedom? You see, when I was a much younger man, I thought the key to success was just working harder, longer hours, more effort, more sweat. And yet, the harder I worked, the more I began to realize something uncomfortable. I was working to survive, not to be free. I was trading time for money, and time is limited. Then one day, a mentor of mine said something that struck me like a bolt of lightning. He said, "Jim, if you keep working the way you're working, you'll make a living, but you'll never make a fortune." Now that was tough to hear, but it was exactly what I needed, because that sentence opened a door in my mind. I realized that the people who build freedom don't have different bodies, different brains, or different hours. They have a different philosophy. They know a secret most people never learn. Money is a servant, not a master, and freedom begins the moment you learn how to make money work for you. Today, I want to share with you a powerful rule, one that the wealthy understand, one that completely transformed my own life. And I want you to stay with me until the end, because if you grasp this, if you let it sink into your philosophy, it can change the trajectory of your next 10 years, your next 20, even the generations that come after you. This isn't luck. It isn't chance. It's not about being born in the right place or knowing the right people. It's about learning the right principles and applying them with discipline. Most people spend their lives earning money so they can live today. The wealthy spend their lives building systems so money can serve them tomorrow. And the big question, the one I want you to reflect on as we begin, is this: are you working for money, or is money working for you? Because that one distinction, my friends, is the line between a life of pressure and a life of freedom. So let's begin. Let's explore this philosophy together. Let's uncover the secret the rich understand and the rest overlook. Now, before we talk about strategies, or investing, or cash flow, we have to take a step back. Because the real beginning of wealth is not in the numbers, it's in the philosophy. Wealth doesn't start in your pocket. It starts in your thinking. It starts in the way you view time, effort, and opportunity. Someone once asked me, "Jim, why is it that two people with the same job, the same income, the same environment end up with two very different lives?" And the answer is simple. They don't have the same philosophy. You see, the average person grows up learning how to earn a living, but almost no one grows up learning how to build a life. Schools teach how to read, write, and memorize, but they don't teach how to think about money, how to design a future, or how to turn effort into freedom. Most people think in terms of days and weeks. I get paid Friday, I spend Saturday, I recover Sunday, and I start again Monday. And that becomes the cycle, day after day, week after week, year after year. But the wealthy, they think differently. They think in years, in decades, in generations. The wealthy don't ask, "How do I survive this month?" They ask, "How do I structure my next 10 years so I never have to worry again?" They aren't living paycheck to paycheck, they're living principle to principle. And that's why they win. When I was in my 20s, I complained to my mentor that I wasn't making enough money. He listened patiently and said, "Jim, if you were to double your income this year, it wouldn't matter, because your philosophy is the same. You'd just spend twice as much and end up twice as stressed." Now that wasn't easy to hear, but it was true. My problem wasn't income. My problem was thinking. And that's where many people get stuck. They believe their circumstances control their future, when in reality, it's the philosophy driving their decisions. Money follows philosophy. Habits follow philosophy. Results follow philosophy. If you want to change what you have, you must first change what you think. So let me give you a distinction that changed everything for me. The poor think survival. The middle class thinks comfort. The wealthy think freedom. Three very different mindsets and three very different outcomes. Survival thinking says, "I just need enough to get by." Comfort thinking says, "I want a nicer house, a nicer car, a nicer life." But freedom thinking says, "I'm building something that will take care of me and my family long after I stop working." And until you elevate your thinking to the level of freedom, you'll always be trapped in the race of survival or comfort. You don't start building wealth by opening an investment account. You start by opening your mind. You don't begin by saving money. You begin by changing your relationship with money. You don't change your circumstances. You change your philosophy, and your philosophy changes your circumstances. So before we move forward, I want you to ask yourself a very important question. What philosophy has been guiding my life so far? Survival, comfort, or freedom? Because where you stand today is shaped by that answer, and where you will stand tomorrow depends on your willingness to change it. Now that we've built the foundation, let's take the next step. Let's reveal the rule that separates those who work for money from those who let money work for them. Now, let's get to the rule, the one principle that changed my entire financial life. And if you understand it, truly understand it, it can change yours. Here it is, as simple as I can say it. Never rely solely on your labor. Build assets that earn while you sleep. When I first heard this, I was stunned. Because like most people, I grew up believing that the way to wealth was to work harder, longer hours, extra jobs, more energy, more sweat. I thought that freedom was on the other side of effort. But ladies and gentlemen, here's what I learned. Effort alone is not enough. If effort were enough, every construction worker, every nurse, every teacher, every single parent working 2 jobs would be wealthy. But they're not. Not because they don't work hard, but because they're working the wrong equation. And one day my mentor said to me, Jim, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you'll make a fortune. That was the first time I understood the difference between earning money and building wealth. You see, when you rely only on your own effort, you have a limit. You only have so many hours, so much energy, so much life in a day. But money, money has no such limitation. Money doesn't need sleep. Money doesn't need rest. Money doesn't get tired, doesn't get sick, doesn't need motivation or inspiration. Money can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in every city, in every country, in every market around the world. But here's the catch, it only works when you give it a job. And most people never do. Most people treat money like a visitor. It comes in, it goes out. And they never ask where it's been or what it accomplished. The wealthy treat money like an employee. They say, here's your task, here's your assignment, here's your mission, now go work for me. And money, when properly guided, becomes the most loyal employee you'll ever have. When I was younger, I met a man who said, Jim, I work 16 hours a day. I know I'll be rich soon. And I told him, no, my friend, you'll just get very good at being tired. Because if you work 16 hours a day with no system, no assets, and no leverage, you're not building wealth, you're burning years. The wealthy still work hard, but they work with leverage. They work with systems. They work with assets. They work with strategies. They understand that the goal is not to be the hardest worker in the room. The goal is to be the person whose money works the hardest. Imagine for a moment that every dollar you earn is like a tiny employee. Now imagine hiring 1,000 of them, 10,000 of them, 100,000 of them. Imagine all those dollars working while you sleep, while you rest, while you spend time with your family. That, my friends, is financial freedom. And you don't get there by working more hours. You get there by learning how to put money to work. Some people say, Jim, when I have more money, I'll start investing. And I always reply, if you can't invest a dime out of a dollar, you won't invest 100 out of 1,000. It's not the amount, it's the philosophy. Because the moment you say money must work for me, you step into the mindset of freedom. And the moment you don't, you step into the mindset of dependency. So I want you to ask yourself, is my money idle or is it employed? Because idle money is a burden, working money is a blessing. And now that you know the rule, never rely solely on labor, it's time to learn the next step, how to control your money so it can finally begin working for you. Now that we've established the powerful rule, make money work for you, we must talk about the foundation that rule stands on. Because if your money's out of control, it doesn't matter how much you make, doesn't matter how smart you are, and it certainly doesn't matter how many investment videos you watch on YouTube. One of the first lessons my mentor taught me was this: Jim, if you don't tell your money where to go, it will leave on its own. And he was right. Most people don't go broke because of one big decision. They go broke because of 1,000 small ones. A coffee here, a subscription there, a little impulse buy, a little emotional spending, so quiet, so innocent that it escapes awareness, but not consequences. And I discovered something early in my journey. You cannot build wealth with money you don't control. It's just not possible. So let's talk about control, not restriction, not punishment, not deprivation. Control, awareness, direction. The wealthy practice something very simple. They track their cash flow, not because they're stingy, but because they're responsible. Because they understand a fundamental truth of life. What isn't measured can't be improved, and what isn't monitored eventually becomes mismanaged. I remember sitting down with a young man once. He said, Jim, I make good money, but it feels like it disappears. And I told him, let's take a look. So we wrote down every expense, every dollar, every habit. After about 40 minutes, he looked at the paper and said, this can't be right. Oh, but it was. The numbers were honest, even if he wasn't ready to be. And that's when he realized he wasn't losing money because he made too little. He was losing money because he wasn't paying attention. That's what I call financial leaks. And here's the danger. Leaks don't announce themselves. They don't knock on your door and say, hey, I'm draining your future. No, they show up in silence. But freedom disappears the same way, quietly, slowly, and without warning. Now let me give you a simple formula I've taught for decades. It's the 70-10-10-10 rule. 70% to live on, 10% for savings, 10% for investing, 10% for giving or charity. It's not the only formula in the world, but it's one that introduces balance. It teaches discipline. It creates room for growth. You can adjust it as you advance, but the point is to adopt a structure, because money without structure becomes money without purpose, and money without purpose becomes money lost. Let me tell you something important. Discipline isn't about taking freedom away, it's about giving it back. When you tell your money where to go, you take back control of your life, you take back your time, you take back your future. People think discipline is a cage, but the truth is, discipline is a key. It doesn't lock you in, it unlocks your potential. Now imagine something for a moment. Imagine sitting down at the end of each month and being able to say, I know exactly where every dollar went. I know what fed me, what drained me, what grew me, and what freed me. That clarity alone will move you toward wealth faster than the best investment tip from a stranger on the internet. Because before money can work for you, you must work on you. You must become the kind of person who directs money, no longer the person who watches it disappear. So here's the question you must reflect on. Am I controlling my money, or is my money controlling me? Because the answer will determine whether the next 10 years become a decade of progress or a repeat of the last one. Now that we've built the foundation of control, we're ready for the next step, creating your very first asset, your first real stream of income that works even when you don't. Now that you've learned how to control your cash flow, it's time for one of the most exciting steps on the pathway to freedom. Creating your first asset. Not your 10th, not your 5th, your first. Because once you build one, you can build 5. And once you build 5, you can build a portfolio. But every forest begins with a single seed. When I first learned about assets, I thought an asset was something big, something expensive, something complicated. I thought it required a lot of money, a special education, and perfect timing. And then my mentor corrected me. He said, Jim, an asset is anything that works while you rest. That's simple. An asset is something that earns while you sleep, something that continues producing even when you're not standing over it with your hands on the wheel. Let me give you a definition you'll never forget. A job earns you a living. An asset earns you a life. Some people say, Jim, I'll start an asset when I have enough money. But that's not how it works. You don't build assets when you have money. You build them to get money. You start small. You start simple. You start with the habit, not the number. Maybe your first asset is an automatic investment account. Maybe it's a simple index fund you contribute to every month. Maybe it's a dividend-paying stock that sends a small drip of cash back into your pocket. Maybe it's a tiny online product that sells while you sleep. Maybe it's renting a room or launching a small digital skill as a service. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to start. I remember a student of mine who said, Jim, what difference will $5 make? And I told him, it's not $5, it's the beginning of discipline. The wealthy don't start big, they start consistent. They understand that the size of the first step doesn't matter, the direction does. Because when you take the first step, you create momentum. And momentum is priceless. Let me give you a little exercise. Imagine that every dollar you earn is a tiny soldier. Right now, they're all working for someone else, your landlord, your subscriptions, your cravings, your impulses. But the moment you say, this dollar will work for me, you promote that dollar from laborer to soldier. And that soldier begins earning more soldiers. Soon those soldiers begin building small battalions. And years later, you'll look back and realize you weren't just saving, you were building an army. But here's the part most people miss. You don't wait for your first asset to become big before creating the next one. You start building a second, even if the first is still small. Why? Because wealth is built on streams, not a single river. And you only need one small stream to begin the flow. Now, I want to make this clear. Your first asset won't make you rich. It won't pay all your bills. It won't buy you a new home or a new life overnight, but it will do something far more important. It will change your identity. It will transform you from a worker into an investor, from a spender into a builder, from someone who hopes into someone who creates. So I want you to ask yourself, what will be the first asset I build this year? Not someday, not when I'm ready, not when I have more money this year. Because once you start building assets, you begin walking away from the limits of your labor. And once you take that step, you'll discover something extraordinary, the secret ingredient that turns small assets into powerful ones, the miracle of compound growth. Now that you've planted your first asset, the first seed in your financial garden, it's time to learn one of the greatest forces available to human beings. A force so powerful that Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. A force that the wealthy rely on, the disciplined benefit from, and the impatient never get to see. It's called compound growth. Let me tell you something remarkable. Compound growth is not a money principle. It's a life principle. And once you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. Now, let's take a simple example. Imagine planting a seed. In the first year, nothing impressive happens. A sprout, a stem, a fragile little thing that bends with the wind. And because nothing dramatic happens, most people give up. They want trees without seasons, fruits without planting, rewards without patience. But that's not how life works. Nature has her own timeline. She rewards the planter, not the observer. And by the 10th year, that sprout becomes a tree. By the 20th, it gives shade. By the 30th, it produces fruit. And inside each fruit, more seeds, more beginnings, more potential. That's compound growth. Nothing for a while, then everything. When I was younger, I didn't understand this. I wanted fast results. I wanted wealth to appear as quickly as my effort. And then my mentor told me, Jim, anything worthwhile takes time. He was right. Compound growth doesn't reward the fast. It rewards the faithful. Let me give you a story. I once met a woman with an average job and an average income. Nothing spectacular, nothing glamorous, but she had a powerful philosophy, consistency. At age 25, she began investing $200 a month into a simple index fund. No fads, no hype, no emotions, just discipline. Year after year, month after month. Rain or shine. When she turned 55, after 30 years, her account had grown to over $400,000. She didn't win the lottery. She didn't start a tech company. She didn't gamble on the next miracle investment. She simply understood one thing. Small efforts multiplied by time create extraordinary results. Meanwhile, I've watched others earn 10 times her income, spend it all, and end up with nothing. Why? Because compound interest helps the planter, not the dreamer. It rewards action, not intention. Now here's the magic. Compound growth doesn't just apply to money, it applies to everything. You read 10 pages a day. After a month, no big change. After a year, you're a different person. You practice gratitude each morning. After a week, it feels simple. After 10 years, it changes your whole personality. You invest a little each month. After a few months, barely noticeable. After a decade, life-changing. The world is full of people who underestimate tiny daily disciplines and overestimate big occasional efforts. So here's the lesson. Don't ask what a habit will do for you today. Ask what it will do for you in 10 years. Because the greatest gifts in life don't arrive instantly, they accumulate. Let me give you a simple truth. You don't need more speed. You need more consistency. You don't need more intensity. You need more discipline. You don't need bigger actions. You need smaller actions repeated faithfully. Wealth is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And compound growth is the wind at your back. So ask yourself, right now, what small action can I commit to every day? One that, when multiplied by time, will change my future. Because if you master compound growth, you won't just double your money, you'll change your destiny. Now that you understand how your assets multiply, it's time to protect them. Because while compound growth builds your future, there are traps, silent, subtle, dangerous, that can quietly destroy it. Now that you understand the miracle of compound growth, let's talk about something just as important, protecting it. Because let me tell you, my friends, wealth doesn't disappear because of one catastrophic mistake. It disappears because of small habits, subtle traps, and tiny decisions repeated over years. Freedom is built quietly and lost just as quietly. You see, there are 5 traps I've watched ruin more financial futures than bad investments or bad luck. And if you want to preserve everything you're building, you must be wise enough to see these traps before you fall into them. Let's start with the first one. Lifestyle inflation. Now, this is the silent assassin of freedom. Most people, the moment they earn more, spend more, a raise becomes a nicer car, a bonus becomes a bigger apartment, a good month becomes a luxury purchase, and before they know it, their lifestyle has risen higher than their income. What they forget is this. If your lifestyle grows faster than your assets, you're walking backward. Wealthy people increase their margin before they increase their lifestyle. They expand their freedom before they expand their spending. The second trap is emotional spending. Oh, this one is dangerous because emotions make terrible financial decisions. Stress says, buy something to feel better. Boredom says, spend something to stay entertained. Impulse says, you deserve it, go ahead. But here's the truth. Emotional spending solves nothing. It simply postpones the real problem and adds a new one. The wealthy don't spend based on mood, they spend based on purpose. The third trap is one most people never question. Debt disguised as convenience. Buy now, pay later. 0 interest for 6 months. Monthly payments as low as... You see it everywhere. It's the sugar of finance, sweet in the beginning, bitter at the end. I once told an audience, debt is not a monster, it's a slow poison. You don't feel it today, but tomorrow it owns you. The wealthy understand good debt builds assets, while bad debt builds chains. The fourth trap is financial ignorance. You see, money punished me for what I didn't know long before it rewarded me for what I learned. And many people fall behind not because they're incapable, but because they never took the time to learn the basic rules of the game. The world is full of people earning money, but very few know how to keep it, and fewer still know how to grow it. Learning is the price of admission to the world of wealth. If you won't read, listen, study, or ask, money will always slip through your fingers. The fifth and final trap is lack of long-term planning. Most people live in the moment, and that's wonderful for sunsets and vacations, but terrible for finances. If you don't design your future, someone else will. Your bills, your debts, your emergencies. But here's what the wealthy understand. Planning doesn't limit your freedom, it protects it. 10-year vision, 5-year milestones, 1-year targets, daily disciplines. That's how freedom is created, by design, not by accident. Let me tell you a story. I once met 2 men with the same income. One lived on impulse cars, gadgets, nights out, quick thrills. The other lived with intention, investments, savings, learning, discipline. 10 years later, the first man had memories and debt. The second had assets and freedom. And do you know what separated them? Not talent, Not luck, habits. The wealthy man simply avoided the traps. So ask yourself, which trap is silently holding me back? Because awareness is the first step to escape, and escape is the first step toward freedom. Now that we've cleared the traps from your path, we're ready for a deeper shift, one that doesn't just build wealth, but builds the kind of person who can sustain it. Now, we've talked about strategies, habits, systems, how to plant, how to protect, how to multiply, but none of those matter. Not truly until you become the kind of person who can attract wealth. Because let me share a principle that sits at the center of everything I've taught for 40 years. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. When my mentor first told me that, I didn't understand it. I thought success was a hunt. You chase it, you run after it, you grab it, you hold it. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Success is not a chase, it's a magnet, and you are the magnet. Let's break this down into 3 transformations the wealthy undergo, not on paper, not in their bank accounts, but in themselves. 1. Character, keeping your promises to yourself. Wealthy people don't have superhuman discipline, they have integrity. The moment they decide to save, they save. The moment they decide to invest, they invest. The moment they decide to change, they change. Discipline is simply the act of honoring the agreements you make with yourself. The poor break those agreements. The wealthy protect them. 2. Skills, becoming more valuable in the marketplace. The marketplace doesn't pay you for time, it pays you for value. And value comes from skill. You want a bigger income? Become more valuable. You want more opportunities? Become more capable. You want wealth to find you? Become the kind of person the marketplace cannot ignore. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more wisdom. Don't wish for easier tasks. Wish for better skills. 3. Philosophy, operating on principles, not emotions. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your philosophy is wrong, money will slip away from you like water through open fingers. A poor philosophy says, spend first, save later. A wealthy philosophy says, invest first, live on the rest. A poor philosophy asks, can I afford it? A wealthy philosophy asks, does it move me closer to freedom? A poor philosophy says, it's only $5. A wealthy philosophy says, every dollar has a purpose. You see, the difference isn't the money, it's the thinking. Now, let me tell you why this matters. If you build wealth without building character, you'll lose it. If you build wealth without building skills, you won't keep it. If you build wealth without building philosophy, you won't understand it. True wealth is 10% strategy and 90% mindset. Because when you become the kind of person who attracts opportunity, opportunity starts showing up everywhere through people, through chance, through timing, through doors that used to be closed. Let me give you a story. I once knew a man who lost every dollar he ever made. Not because he didn't earn well, he earned extremely well. But he hadn't built himself. His character wasn't ready. His philosophy wasn't ready. His habits weren't ready. The money came, and the money left. And I've known other people who started with nothing but the decision to grow, who built fortunes slowly but surely. They built themselves first, and money simply followed. So here's the principle. If you want more, you must become more. Wealth doesn't begin with assets. It doesn't begin with investments. It doesn't begin with money. It begins with you. So ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming? Someone who chases wealth or someone who attracts it? Because when you become the kind of person who attracts success, you'll never have to chase it again. Now that we've transformed the foundation, your identity, your mindset, your habits, we reach the final piece, a closing message that brings everything together and challenges you to act on it today. Now, my friends, we've walked a long road together in this lesson. We've talked about philosophy, about habits, about assets, about compound growth, about traps, and about becoming a person who attracts wealth, not someone who chases it. But if there's one message I want you to carry with you as you leave this presentation, it's this. Freedom is not built in a day. Freedom is built daily. Most people hear principles like these and feel inspired. But inspiration fades. Excitement fades. Motivation fades. What lasts, what creates the life you dream of, is discipline. And I often say this not to sound poetic, but to sound practical. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and accomplishment. Your dream life sits on one side. Your daily habits build the bridge. So let me ask you a final question, one that every person must answer at some point in their life. Who will control your future, your circumstances, or you? Because the truth is simple. If you don't control your money will control you. If you don't work on your philosophy, your old thinking will run your life. If you don't build assets, you will forever trade time for money. If you don't become more valuable, the marketplace will never reward you more. But here's the good news. You can begin changing all of that today. Today is your gift. Today is the opening. Today is the turning point. Not next year. Not when you feel ready. Not when things settle down. Because let me tell you with absolute certainty, things never settle down. Life is always shifting, moving, demanding. So you must decide to begin while life is happening, not after. Tonight, set aside $10. That's a seed. Tomorrow, write down every expense. That's awareness. Next week, open your first investment account. That's action. Next month, commit to building your first stream of income. That's momentum. And next year, you won't recognize yourself. Because the truth is, wealth is not built by force. It's built by consistency. Small daily disciplines, repeated faithfully, create miracles over decades. So as we conclude, I want to leave you with a thought I've carried for many years. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You simply need to begin. And once you start the journey toward financial freedom, life itself begins to cooperate. Opportunities show up. Ideas appear. People come into your life. Doors open. Because the universe rewards the person who takes responsibility for their future. My friends, the map is now in your hands. The rule is clear. Don't just work for money. Make money work for you. The habits are outlined. The philosophy has been shared. The path is yours. Now the only question that matters is this. What will you do with the gift of today? Use it wisely. Build your freedom. And I'll see you at the top.